The Avowed controversies never end. At least in one way, Avowed is definitely doing better than Dragon Age Veilguard, because people were so disappointed with that game, everyone pretty much stopped talking about it like 2 weeks after it. But Avowed is still going strong with all their problems and whatnot. This is great.
All right, guys, in today's video, we're going to be talking about Avowed. Now, the reason why we're talking about Avowed is because I saw this screenshot making the rounds on social media right now, where people are basically saying they're being banned for anti-DEI practices. Now, this is something that I reported on probably a couple of weeks ago.
This is hilarious because these people at this is one of the most hypocritical things, and why these people will never succeed in subverting us to believe that they are not insane. Because they are gonna ban you for anti-DEI practices, and yet at the same time, they're gonna be like, oh no, DEI doesn't exist, it's not a real thing. You made it up, chud. Okay, yeah, sure, it doesn't exist. Let's just ignore the mountain of evidence and videos of you saying it exists and you love it. Let's just ignore all of that. And then they ban you for this. It is insanity.
Ago, I really don't remember the exact date, but I remember when the ban started happening, but apparently now it's getting crazy over on the Steam forums. And I do have the Steam forums pulled up here for us to go through, but they are banning people left and right for supposed anti-DEI practices, and we're going to talk about it. Let's get into this video, guys, but of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. Now, again, guys, I've made my point very clear about Avowed. The game is extremely mid. That is literally the only way I could describe this game, the only way I can explain this.
Yeah. And it's sad because Avowed had all the rights to succeed and be a giant thing. Maybe even giant enough to rival Bethesda and Skyrim's and all of that to a degree. But they decide, no, I don't like money. Let's ruin everything with ideologies and things.
This game, the game is unbelievably freaking mid. You will not leave the game feeling like you did anything worthy of your time other than just simply wasting your time, which for some people might be a good thing. Maybe they want to turn their brain off. Perhaps they want to just, play a video game that takes absolutely zero skill whatsoever to play through and has zero, anything interesting to it.
Yeah, Avowed is effectively Diablo 4, but Diablo 4 sold 20 million copies. Avowed is probably not even at the 150K mark at this point.
Aside from its exploration, that's basically what you're going to get from Avowed. Now, here's the thing. Avowed is banning people for anti-DEI practices. The only thing that I can say that was overtly woke about the game is obviously the pronoun nonsense. Pronouns as titles, mind you, not pronouns in general, because people like to confuse the two because they want to be disingenuous. The issue that people have with pronouns is that they are utilizing pronouns as titles, which is a modern day thing. They are trying to say, I am a she, I am a her, I am a they, I am a them. They are giving themselves a title.
How about we combine all of this, wrap it up in a neat little package and just call it mental disorders? Huh? I think that's gonna sell pretty well.
Whereas pronouns were meant to be descriptors and nothing more. Now we have this issue here where, besides the pronoun stuff, which is optional, by the way, ironically, they must have changed it after the fact and enabled it so that you could turn it off. At the end of the day, man, people are still going to view this game as a DEI game simply because, number one, the pronoun stuff, and number two, what Matt Hansen decided was in his best interest to talk about regarding this game. Now, I've played this game. I played it to completion, unfortunately, because I do my reviews that way. And I can tell you right now that this game 100% is one of those subtle woke games, right? Those subtle DEI games where even though the game is...
I don't think even the wokeness matters here as much, honestly, as just the writing being purely redundant and intellectually just dishonest against everyone. You enter a city and you're like, first thing you hear is some random peasant being like, oh, you random adventurer who just came, and they're not talking to you. They want to make this like organic, and it's not organic because it's the only time it happens. And it's like, Ah, yes, adventure. I know where you can get all loot and adventure. Just go into that place, which is 3 steps away from where you are sitting. For some reason, it has not yet been ransacked by all of you adventurers. No one knows about it, even though it's right there, next to the place you arrive at. Go fucking figure.
Is now overtly woke, in my opinion, or really that woke at all, aside from the pronouns. You can see the influence of certain decisions that were made in the game based off the ideology of the developers. For example, the majority of the people who are in charge in this game, the majority of the NPCs you will come across in this game, the majority of the ones that you talk to that are in any position of power or influence whatsoever are in fact female. They're majority female. Almost no men are in charge in this game. There are a couple here
Good.
and there, but they're very few and far between.
Men suck. World of Warcraft proved it. By the way, World of Warcraft, the War Within, whole storyline is effectively... So, there's these men who rule shit. How about we get rid of them and replace them with powerful females? That are 10 times better than the men, but for some reason weren't the leaders, so... Yay?
And their stories are pretty much non-existent in terms of importance, or they usually are secret bad guys, right? It's very typical of what you would expect from developers that have this sort of mindset. Now, apparently people are calling this out. They're calling this out on the Steam forums, and people are going crazy over there on the Avowed forums. And I have this post here showcasing that somebody was banned for engaging in anti-DEI practices, which is not tolerated on the forums over at Avowed. Let's read what he said. He said the vast majority of the characters in positions of power and authority are female. Men are all some variation of incompetent, corrupt, or evil, though they can get a pass if they have a unique identity or of some description which is racial or sexual based. That is more subtle brand of woke storytelling based on intersectional hierarchy. Writers attempted this variety more often after
I would not call it subtle, considering we can spot it that easily.
overt preaching failed. The classic recent example of this type of woke was Starfield. In that game, you can immediately tell a character's intentions and their role in the subplot by their place in that hierarchy. If you encounter a young female Asian leader, then you can 100% depend on her. She is competent, incorruptible, and essentially flawless.
Yes.
If you encounter an older white man, then it doesn't matter how nice he seems, he's either got some huge character flaw that the quest will require you to clean up, or he would simply be revealed to be the villain of the subplot, which again, 100% agree with. We've seen that in Starfield. We've seen that in other video games, right? Dragon Age Veilguard flopped so hard because they weren't subtle. They were completely on the nose. They would basically tell you to your face, hey, submit, bend the knee, here's all our woke shit. And even if you want to try
That's true.
to avoid it, since they considered it to be optional in the game, it really wasn't optional. At
Optional,
some point in the
my
story,
ass,
you were going
yeah.
to get lambasted with it and have to do push-ups for misgendering someone. Now, there is some like craziness going on over on the Avowed forums. If you look here, you got a thread here from Cajun Rabbit saying, is the game good? Yes. Is it Skyrim 2.0? No, but it's not trying to be either. There is some major cope going on over Avowed about how apparently it's not Skyrim. They're trying to say, oh, I don't want to be Skyrim. We're not Skyrim. I don't care about Skyrim. Although the funny thing is, all the Avowed shills were trying to call this game the Skyrim killer. But now, since the game utterly flopped, now all of a sudden it's not the Skyrim killer. And
now, granted, I don't know. I did never heard any Avowed shills do that. I did that, but I'm not the person he's referring to here. Okay.
it's not trying to be Skyrim.
And if I am, I will give his location to the U.S. government so he gets drone strike because it's in a poppy field.
You need to leave it alone. It's ridiculous. But you said a lot of videos floating around YouTube and other places about how people thought this was a Skyrim killer and the end of Elder Scrolls and all that nonsense. It's not. It's its own thing. It's its own unique world with its own unique characters and monsters. As long as you go into it with an open mind and just expect to play a game for the sake of...
You just need to go into this game with an open mind, okay? This is your first experience ever with anything. That's your mindset here, okay? Don't compare this thing that's supposed to be the other thing to anything, okay? That is one of the cheapest knockoffs ever.
Fun. There is plenty of fun to be had here. The combat is fun while not being overly complex, but also not so simplistic as to bore. The quests are varied enough to be entertaining. There is plenty of dialogue to enjoy. I disagree with all of this, okay? As somebody who played this game, I want to make it very clear. The combat is not fun. The combat is not
Yeah, most people, as far as I understand, just literally use like 2 or 3 things, and that's it.
complex, and the combat is, in fact, a bore. 100%. If you don't believe me, let's watch some gameplay here from my own live stream as we talk about it. All I did for 80% of this game was spam the power mace button. Now, I eventually ended up getting a weapon that allowed me to basically do massive stun locking just by spamming the left click. You can see the stun bar going up very quickly on these enemies, and I would basically just spam the same two skills. I would spam left click and then eventually do a critical stun
Yep, this seems about right.
unlock strike, and then eventually build up the stun bar again until I could do the same critical strike. That's all there was to the combat in this game. This game has absolutely garbage combat. Before I got this weapon that allowed me to use fast strikes, all I did was hold for a power strike. And then if that's it, basically I would be able to stun lock an enemy with 1, 2, maybe 3 at most power strikes. Look at this. I'm literally stun locking the hell out of the enemies where they can't do a damn thing. That's all I was doing in combat. It is a completely broken OP build that I had for over 80% of the
I mean, you're playing a warrior, Hypnotic, okay? Let me tell you something. If you're playing a warrior in these games, I mean, you're literally kind of saying, this is the gameplay experience I kind of want to a degree. It's not true, but it is kind of in that direction at least.
actual game being played. So no, this game's combat is not amazing. This game's combat is not complex. And this game's combat is a bore. There's nothing fun about it whatsoever. The only thing I ever had fun doing in this game was exploring. Aside from that, the combat and everything else and the dialogue especially, that is literally the worst thing about this game. But aside from that, the combat is nothing to be driving home about. So now that you've seen some gameplay and seen for yourself exactly what the combat is like, let's see what else he says. They built the world for us to play in, and I personally think they achieved that goal. They made a fun fantasy game for us to explore through without ever staying its welcome. All of this said, I do not think the game is worth the $69.99 price tag, and certainly not the $89.99 for the premium edition. This is a $59.99 title that you would normally rent back in the days of physical media consoles and beat it over the course of a couple of weekends. In that aspect, I would recommend getting through this Xbox Game Pass. It's on there, and it's the best way to experience this title without overpaying for it. I'm glad this person was at least honest enough to admit that this game releasing at a $70 price tag is absolutely insane. This is a
Oh yeah, we predicted this, right? I completely called it that this game is gonna be just a complete failure just from the $70 price tag. And the reality is most people bought it for $80. We already looked at the graphs there. You know, it's confirmed at this point. This is a $30 game. This is a game where you have to pay me to play this shit, okay? That's what it is. That's what it sadly is.
a AA game at best with a AA budget and a AA performing team, and they're trying to charge AAA price for this game. This is the reason why this game is missing a ton of sales right now, aside from everything else that's wrong with the game. If it had released at a $49.99 price tag, it would be in a lot better shape. But because it's releasing at a $70 price tag, that puts it in competition with games that blow it out the water, and nobody's ever going to look at this game and say, yep, I'm going to spend $70 to $90 on this one instead of a game like Monster Hunter Wilds, for example. Yeah, it's going to be this one for sure. Many people are not going to make that decision woefully. If you actually want to own this title without the subscription model of Game Pass, I'd wait for a 50% off sale.
It's probably happening pretty soon. Again, Dragon Age Railgod. Wait, didn't it already happen with Avowed? Like, free copies are getting given out or some shit like that? Anyway, don't know. That was Hypnotic 10 out of 10. Bye!